After a long day of work at the warehouse, and only reason I'm doing this video is really perfect time and happy to be wrapping things up. And I figured, man, considering this just broke, it makes sense for me to discuss it because I just did a video on obviously G4. That was part of my week in review video that G4 wasn't going to be no more. Now, a lot of people have officially been vindicated with this tweet, and including me, but I don't need that. I don't even care about that, to be completely honest. I always knew I was right, and you can be mad at it all you want. This is a significant thing, and we're about to talk about it. Frosk, who I think is the biggest contributor to the immediate downfall of G4 TV in terms of their launch, or rather relaunch, and just now pulling the plug saying, look, this ain't working. She accelerated this. I know there are going to be people, some are right, some are wrong, who don't want this to be true, but it is true in that whether you think that model would have worked long term, I said that it wouldn't. I was one of the ones that said that. They would have had to had some sort of draw and some way to keep the audience attentive to their material, because they are entering into an arena that is unlike what it was when G4 was the cool thing back in the gap. How we look at gaming, how we look at reviews is completely different. You got people making videos in their bedrooms, reviewing content, and folks go to them. They like that it's personable. They like that this person verified. You know that they actually got this material, and because of all this access that we have, there's no reason to kind of go to the big dogs anymore for that type of material, yet they were going to be entering in. So that doesn't change, however, the fact that when they did initially announce, they had some, as to be expected, some enthusiasm around the project. A lot of it was nostalgia bait, but what isn't these days? You had the attention of the audience because you had a brand that people could resonate with, and you were giving it another shot, and it was supposed to be this kind of updated model. And really what it was the same crap that we got before, kind of more so. They didn't update, let's say, their economic model to try to keep up with the times, overspending, all that, yada, yada. But this right here, this woman, Frosk, who went on that sexism and gaming rant, I said, look, man, no matter how you feel about it long term, she was the one for sure that killed any enthusiasm that anybody had for G4 TV. Anybody had, that people had for it and what it was going to be. You had people from different political, social political walks of life that were enthusiastic about this. And then when she went on that, considering the day and age that we're in, people are tired of this stuff. That killed any enthusiasm or momentum. And look, man, first impressions is the second impression, but you get what it is that I'm saying. When you are someone that has an established brand, you are going to always be given the benefit of the doubt. However, that doesn't mean that project is going to work long term, because you still have to keep the attention of the audience. And that's what they did not really consider when you consider this. Frost has just taken it to Twitter to say what I already knew. I'm reading this. Came out just like an hour before I'm shooting this video. Frost says, my sexism and gaming segment was approved by executive showrunners and X-Play. When I was originally hired and cast, G4 made the internal statement that diversity and inclusion, those terms that usually make me fall asleep, was what it was built on to fix the past. I was fully supported initially until doxing threats. Okay, so G4, she's solidifying that this was something that they wanted to prioritize, diversity, inclusion. These are terms that, man, I'm falling asleep as soon as I hear those terms. But some folks are like, oh my God, this is entertainment. It's about games, it's about tech. I don't care about any of that crap that you talking about with this. And yet she is saying that it was approved and co-signed by the executive showrunners on X-Play. Remember when I have said, look, you guys who try to overcomplicate things, I've told you that I know that you think folks are, let's say, as aware of what's going on as maybe you think. Like, let's say this. You're giving these people way too much credit in terms of where they're at intellectually. I believe it's as simple as this. What's happening in corporate America, what's happening in entertainment, is that they be considering kind of the generational change. How that happened, we've discussed that many times on the show. But there was a demographic kind of change in approach with a lot of these young folk. You can blame public education, blame whatever you want. There are weirdos who got in positions of power or influence, let's say that, to where they have convinced large swaths, not the ESG stuff, they have convinced large swaths of entertainment industries that this is what you should perpetuate and prioritize, but not because of, just for the sake of advancing an agenda. That's part of it. But the big part of it, or the biggest part of it, is simply that they believe, or they were convinced, the actual shot callers, that these people are going to make the money. That's the bottom line. Now, they were wrong. And this is why I'm saying you're giving them far too much credit and thinking that this is grand scheme. I believe there's a grand scheme for the people that are wanting this content to be pushed because they understand that the influence of entertainment. However, the actual people that let's say actually have power, like in that company, they're like, okay, you convinced me that this blue hair weirdo that you hired out of college that got all these degrees to analyze markets and stuff has convinced these people that this is the way of the future. Social media has triggered. It's actually a benefit for a lot of us, whether you know it or not. And not by us, I'm talking about folks that are, let's say, not having like mega corporate funding, right? But they don't know how to gauge it. Corporate entities, a lot of folks, hell, big or small, don't actually understand how to gauge the reality of social media. They are confused. They think that it means things that it does not. So they have been convinced that, well, the young folk think this, future generations are believing in this sort of narrative that we've kind of pumped in their heads, but this is the route that you want to go. And they're loud, right? They're loud on social media. If you turn on social media, you understand this, how it can be slanted one way and how it looks, what people want to hear. You see these weird sort of like viral tweets and all this. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's not even real. So they've been convinced and they've implemented this in their own projects, thinking that it was going to get them money, thinking that this was gonna be a way to get support and garner support. Because think about it. If you're not as smart as you are, if you just got on social media and you thought that was representative of the world at large or the country or your country that you're in, you're sadly mistaken. But you could see how an oblivious person could see that. So she was supported. She went on this rant, and that's to be expected. The folks back there, hey, y'all told us this is what's going to work. You know, hey, we're getting cosigns, we're getting retweets, we stand behind you. But I have another comment that I'm going to make on this. But look at what she also says. Then I guess she said she got doxxed or threats. Obviously, getting physical. I always take this stuff with a grain of salt when these folks are like, oh, I've been threatened, I've been, and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay. What does that mean? Because I get ugly things, definitely with the Riververse stuff. People saying ugly things about me all the time. And, you know, it'd be very easy for me to nitpick some weird sock account of somebody saying something let's say inflammatory, but is that actually representative of the backlash? Are people saying your opinion is stupid and you're conflating that as threat? Look, I don't know. Now, obviously threatening people or doxing people, like actual legitimate threats, it's not cool. But she says, then I asked for support multiple times and was ignored or directly lied to about support coming. No guidelines, no plans, no help. Then management changed and it became openly hostile. And she concludes, and now this is the last thing I ever say about G4. People who I worked with were lovely. I gave them everything, producer, writer, host, and more. Will do it again. Love y'all. Okay. So this tells me in this part right here, this paragraph about, well, they had your support, or they supported you initially, and then they kind of backed off of that is what happened. That's what she's saying. It's like, then the support, she's like asking, calling for help, and they're like, nah, maybe this wasn't the move, because it wasn't. what this tells us is that they knew they jacked up. They knew and that was really you had the fork in the road. I talked about this last video. When she went on that rant, even if you didn't authorize it, let's just say she went on it and you aired it. The smart thing would have been to say, all right, come out. Like, this ain't what we're cleaning this up. That's that individual's opinion and that's their positions. Whatever, this is not really the route that we're going. This is about text, it's about games. No. But that's not what they did. What they initially did, they used the G4 accounts and all that to support this woman going on a rant that ain't really got nothing to do with nothing. And that was going to immediately turn a lot of people off, and it did. So everybody, of course, that made that statement was right. And I was particularly right about they knew that this was not something, and they tell you in their actions, like, that's what did them in. They knew it was a mistake. They knew it was a bad move, a mistake and a bad move. They knew it. I guess it's part 2 of let this be a lesson for you all. Guys, stop. If you're a business owner, call it whatever you will, but making these people be part of your staff, especially if they are actually representing your company, like publicly. It's one thing for them to be in the closet doing something, like IT or something like that's. Nobody will ever know who that person is. But when they are like your face, right? So there you have this programming or company, whatever you want to call it, entertainment sector, and this person is one of the faces. Bringing them in, and she says in the first freaking paragraph about this whole diversity and inclusion, she brought that up unprovoked. Okay, so that was something that was prioritized, and you saw what it was that it got you. A dead company after a year. Did it even make a year? Did it even make a year? I don't know. But a dead company is what you got. And you notice in all this, right? She doesn't say a damn thing about, well, were my actions costing the company that I worked for money? You know why? Because she doesn't care. It's about diversity. It's about inclusion. It's about these social, political, social views, let's say that, and statements being made, and you using G4 as a vehicle to do that, then it is about Comcast getting a return investment. And this is why they're the worst people to hire. And I say this as obviously as a business owner and one that has a growing business that's moving at a pace that's faster than what I ever could imagine. And you see how cautious I am. It's not to say that there won't be mistakes made along the way, but I have to be that cautious about even who I bring on for reasons like this, right? When you have, and it shows, like the team that I got now, it's not the biggest team, but it is a team nonetheless. We got a couple of folks, actually a few, that have flown out here helping us with fulfillment. The guys that work for the company are remote, and so they can see kind of our operations and everything that we do. And these guys are rock stars, okay? Like and you know how that feels when you have a person that, and part of that's on you. You know, how do you kind of implement that in their own employment to make sure they have skin in the game? Like, why should this person, bust their tail for you? That's on you obviously as a business to give them something to strive for and something to believe in, to where you can't expect people to work as maybe hard as you as the owner, but they can at least work hard, and their actions show that they actually care about your bottom line. Whereas you hire these people based on these moronic ideas and phantom ideas of, let's say, diversity and inclusion and representation and all those nonsensical terms that are just thrown out there, really, and they use it as a shield when they make bad decisions. But those people don't care about you. They don't care about your money. They don't care about the fact that you might not be, you're not going to get a return investment. None of that. They don't care. It's a job. It's a gig, and you gave it to them, and you gave them an out by saying that this was something that you were going to be focusing on, which had nothing to do with the business, right? There's nothing conducive about, diversity and inclusion. The hell? You using that as a means to strike, and you supported someone on that basis. Oh, that was a mistake, bro. And now you see what it got you. And now all of her coworkers ain't got a job. Some of them, probably 2 or 3 of them, will fit in with Comcast where they think that they can fit them. But the vast majority of those cats that were doing G4 stuff, hell, some of them found out the same way we did via a tweet that G4 is no more. They all out of jobs. It's a lesson. We're in for a creative renaissance, and I've used that term, and I think that's the appropriate one. And I will say that you have one up on people and other businesses, especially the mega corporations, by simply not doing what they do in terms of their mistakes. And not all of it's about diversity or social justice or all this other nonsense. Some of it's just in how they do how their model is economically. You're seeing and getting master classes that you don't even have to pay for on what not to do. And you are, more importantly, seeing when you do that and you focus on that weird stuff and you try to implement what everybody else is implementing it and not understanding, like, wait a minute, does this make sense? No, it doesn't, but everybody's doing it. So you go do it too. And then it leaves you with more than a headache. You're talking about like millions of dollars down the drain. For what? And it could have been avoided. That's not to say that long-term G4 would have saw the success that it had, definitely as of old. Maybe not. They would have had to. It would have been difficult to retain that audience, but they did have. I remember vividly, there was some enthusiasm around the project initially, and it was just undercut by some chick that wanted to go on a rant. And you can say it accelerated it, call it whatever you want. But whatever momentum that they had is done. And you can put that on Frost. Stop hiring these weirdos, bro.